70 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Robin, years ago when I was a kid growing up in New York, there was a theme park that I went to, and it probably was the first time I was introduced to anything similar to what we now have in our backyard here in Florida called Disney World and Universal. I went to this place called Freedom Land.
Oh, wow.
And I think I've shared with you my stories of Freedom Land and how, well, here's how what that has to do with our next guests, not only because the word freedom is part of their book. Their book is called The Freedom Zone. But when I was looking at the information regarding the interview, it occurred to me that Freedom Land was a way to escape. It was a way to say, you know, whatever's going on in my life, I'm going to put that on hold, and I'm going to go to Freedom Land. Of course, what was going on in my life when I was 6 or 7 or 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
Now, in Florida, you know, we go to Disney World, and I guess you could argue that the same thing happens. We say, you know what, I'm going to take a break from my normal life, all the worries and everything. I'm going to go to the place that has been labeled by Walt Disney himself as the happiest place in the world.
That's right.
Right? And of course, if you go there and you're witnessing a family that's been there since, 6 in the morning and now it's 8 at night, and you see the mothers yelling at the kids, stop it. We're not going to stand in another line. You say, is this the happiest place?
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
There's been a few things that we've all tried to do to make our lives better, whether it's earn more money, quit smoking, and lose weight, any of those things. I think the two ladies are going to talk about something that's just a step above all of those things, including going to theme parks to give ourselves a time out from whatever it is that's bothering us.
Yeah.
Sharon Brick and Donna Fullerton are both on the phone. They are the authors of The Freedom Zone, and Sharon is a pioneer in the insurance industry, it says here, certified in advanced leadership and coaching. Donna Fullerton is certified in executive marketing, advertising research, and the founder of The Food for the Soul, which is an online inspirtainment experience. I had to read that the right way.
That's cool.
The Freedom Zone, your gateway to love, liberty, and happiness. It sounds like a theme park, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ladies, good morning. Sharon Brick and Donna Fullerton. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Where are you? Are you both in the same place?
No, I'm in Florida. This is Sharon, and I'm in Florida in Boynton Beach.
Okay.
And Donna is in New York City.
Oh, wow. So we have something in common.
Yes, you were saying exactly when you were mentioning that. I was like, oh yes.
Oh, you remember Freedom Land?
No, actually no. Because
You're too
I'm
young.
Actually I'm from Jamaica, so I didn't really grow up here until much later.
Oh,
I came here when I was 17.
Oh, the real Jamaica, not the one in Queens.
The Queen. I know. I've heard that so many times.
And I just moved from New York, so I do have a recollection of what the Freedom Land was.
Oh, really? Okay. So tell me about the book and how the idea came to both of you at the same time. How did you get together? So you know each other, but you're 1,000 miles apart or more?
Well, we are now.
Yes, we used to live in the same town. Sharon used to live in Brooklyn, and I live in Manhattan. And Sharon and I met when we were doing some self-improvement work. We were doing work at Landmark, and we hit it off. We became really amazing friends. And through that process of kind of like just meeting each other, and we saw how many things that we shared, and we just really liked each other. And we just kept asking each other. There was this question that always would present itself. You know, we were happy in our jobs. We loved what we did for a living. I mean, we could say we had a really great life, and yet there was always some place or some area where I didn't feel complete, and Sharon also didn't feel fulfilled. And so we were starting to look further and deeper, and that's when we were introduced to this notion of freedom. What would it be like in your life if you had freedom in areas of your life where you felt this sense of loss of freedom? And what we would do is we would get together once a week, and we would meet at a cafe, actually like one of those diners on Lexington Avenue, in fact, if you're familiar with New York. And we would sit and talk to each other about what had happened during the course of our week. We would talk about where we felt areas where we had a loss of freedom. So, for example, if I was going through a particular challenging time with a relationship, I would share that with Sharon, and from that place, I'm like, what was that like, not having the sense of freedom? And then Sharon would share hers, and we found that as we talked about where we had a loss of freedom, we started to feel a sense of ease around it, because it was kind of bringing it into being, into the light. And the realization started this process for us of actually beginning to speak to people about freedom. So we started having rap sessions, which are kind of like focus groups, but with people talking about freedom and what that was like for them. And we saw that as we were doing these groups and having these questions asked, people were starting to feel a sense of freedom around their own experiences in their lives. And that led us to the notion of, we did workshops, and from there we then said, wow, this is really working in people's lives. It's working in our lives. It's working in other people's lives. What about if we were to put all of this down on paper?
Wow.
So the Freedom Zone, your gateway to love, liberty, and happiness, was born.
I wonder how much we steal other people's freedoms. In other words, feeling guilty just a little bit. I mean, do I hold other people back ever from being freer than they really want to be? Could that be? I mean, I know you don't know me, but I mean, could a person without, I mean, not somebody who's got ill intent, but somebody who has good intentions actually be hindering somebody's freedom?
Well, if I may, this is Sharon, I just want to say that we believe that the responsibility of each person's freedom lies within themselves. So you may take action that would have another person not feel free, but the reality is that it is their responsibility as to how they react to whatever is going on. You can't, for instance, make me angry. I can be angry at what you're saying, but that's my choice. And what the Freedom Zone introduces is a way of looking at what happens in our lives and our reactions to what happens in our lives, where before we would say, you did this or you made me angry, and now say, to come back inside and say, okay, what's going on within me that I'm responding that way, and what are the choices do I have? What can I bring to the situation that can transform that for me so that you don't rob me of my freedom? Essentially, what I'm saying is I rob me of my freedom.
So the person,
so it's not a blame game.
But the person then has to have the courage to take it upon themselves to admit that and see it within themselves that it's really their own self.
Well, that's true. And it does take some courage, but I think also it takes tools. And a lot of times people just don't know how to do that. We're taught to be a certain way. We mimic what we have learned and what we've seen. This is a new approach to how to look at circumstances and to not become a victim to them, but to understand that freedom is about choice and what we bring to the situation.
I can, here's how I can relate to this. I used to work for the state. I used to work for the juvenile justice system, and part of my job was picking up kids who were arrested in far-off places. So I had to drive in the middle of the night to pick up these kids, and I used to hate that. And then I decided to say, you know what? I'm doing the exact same thing I would do if I was on a vacation. I'm on the interstate. I'm getting a cup of coffee. I'm driving in the dark. Hey, why don't I just pretend I'm on vacation and then listen to the radio, and when I happen to pick up a kid, I'll bring him home.
Well, Larry, that is a perfect example of how attitude changes the perspective and where you can go from no freedom to freedom.
Yeah, that's my example.
It's a good one.
It's a perfect example, because that's the situation. We talked. You have a career or something you do, and there are parts of it that you don't particularly like, but you love what you're providing.
Right.
So how can you transform that in the moment? And that's the key thing about this conversation about freedom, is that it's a moment-to-moment thing. Because here's the thing. You may have that freedom that moment because you brought that attitude, right, Larry? You said, okay, this is an adventure, it's a vacation, and you bring that. And so that person who shows up to pick up that kid is this person who's like, really, okay, I'm feeling free and at ease with it. if you stayed in the state of anger and upset, you may not have had that experience. And I know for myself, the same thing occurred. And we heard people talking about this all the time. So if somebody wants to lose weight, as an example, instead of saying, it's a dress size and forcing yourself, how about you choose another way to be? What if I could be healthy? What if I chose being healthy and well? It really then provides you with a lot more options to look at.
Yeah.
You're not so upset about it,
And this really helps the person that's always seems to be in the doldrums all the time. There's always some person out there in somebody's circle of friends that keeps saying, oh, woe is me, feel sorry for me, you have to be my savior.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Well, that's an unfortunate event when you have people in your circle that way. And it is true. There are people like that. And we believe that by doing the practices within the book, The Freedom Zone, the awareness processes that we have throughout the book, people have an opportunity to look at situations in a whole different light. And maybe through that awareness, they can see something where before they didn't see it. And maybe they can bring a different approach to how they're feeling and thinking.
Wow. One of the things that is written about in the preparation material for the book is imagined truth. And as a parent, I will tell you that the biggest blessing I've had in my life was being a parent. But I also will tell you that there was a time in my life when I thought, I'm not so sure. I don't want to trap myself to being home, because back when I was younger, I used to tour around playing music at colleges, and so I imagined that being married and having children would be entrapping, but it was exactly the opposite. It was liberating in a way. And did I imagine a truth that was wrong, or did my truth change?
No, that's a really excellent kind of introduction to the imagined truth, Larry, because the imagined truth is something that we all make up from we're very, very young. We believe that things happen in our lives and we create certain beliefs around them, and then they start to become like the governing force in our life, The thing about the imagined truth, and this is the thing that Sharon and I discovered through the freedom inquiry process that we have, the imagined truth is something that both sustains us and it also can be restricting and limiting. So on one hand, having an imagined truth, for example, one of the imagined truths that beliefs would be something like, I'm bad. A person could become somebody who is a people pleaser, right? They want to make sure that people will love them, so they're going to do things that they want so that people will love them. Now, people pleasing on its own is not a bad thing, but it's only a really limiting thing if that's the only way you can operate in your life. So when you have the experience and the awareness that the imagined truth is both limiting as well as progressive for us, then you can actually have a better relationship with it. So for you, when you were talking about having children and the whole experience being more liberating, you brought a whole new view to the experience, I'm guessing, that you didn't think was there before. And that's part of what is true about the imagined truth. Even though it's something that we're all kind of create as young people, it's not something that anymore has to limit us if we become aware of it. And as Sharon mentioned, the practices that we have in our book help each of us kind of come to an understanding about where we started, what started those particular reactions that we might have, and how we can now work with them and have them support us in our lives rather than have them limit us in our lives.
Is there a particular age that this happens in a person's life?
It often happens before there's language, because what happens is it's stuff that a kid is feeling, when you're feeling but you have no way to express it, and a family member or parent or older person can't say, well, you know what, we're doing this right now, not because we want to make you feel bad, but because these are the things that we're doing for our family, for example. So let's say, I'll give you an example. A child is in a home and finds that next day or 2 days or whatever later, they're now living with their grandparent, as an example. They don't understand why. If they were adults, if they could speak and their parents could interact with them, their parents might say, you know, honey, I'm going to leave you with Grandma for a little while Daddy and I go off and we do, we take care of some business that we need to take care of. What happens, though, in the child's mind, the child thinks, I've done something wrong. Why am I being moved? I've done something wrong. And that I've done something wrong is inside of you, creating these beliefs, and it could start to manifest as I am bad, so I better be really, really good. I better really hold back anything, make sure that I'm always the good girl. And that's what happens in that particular situation. So it starts before language and before you can actually discuss things with a child. It's very difficult at that time to speak to a 2-year-old and explain those kinds of things to them.
Are you sure you ladies are in the right line of work? It sounds like you're psychologists and philosophers more than insurance and marketing people.
Well,
we're human.
We have actually immersed ourselves in this language and in this way of being, and we've been living the freedom zone for the last 10 years. And so it is not only our way of our line of work at this point, but it is also our way of being.
So what kind of an attitude should a person have? Because when a person is out there in the world on their own, they've, let's say, graduated from high school or graduated from college, and they're in a relationship, they have to get a job so they can sustain themselves away from their parents' home and live on their own, but maybe they haven't really achieved their life goal yet. How can you have them be happy with this thought of the freedom zone, that eventually they're going to be able to pursue their own dreams without just having to work a job to sustain themselves and their family?
Well, the freedom zone is not a place to get to. That's the first thing. So it doesn't matter where you are in life, how much money you have or don't have. As an example, we have experienced people and interviewed people and worked with people who had millions, and they had no freedom around money. And yet, on the other side, there are people who had very, very little money, enough to sustain them, to feed and clothe their families. And they had freedom with money. So freedom is not about where you are in life. Freedom is about how you feel about where you are in life.
I love that, yeah.
I wanted to add, too, that in the work freedom chapter of our book, we actually have an experience of a woman who wanted to be an actress. And she was working in a restaurant, like many actors do.
Right.
And one of the things she determined was, yes, while I want to be an actress, the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to be the best waitress I can be. And so she was always very accommodating with people. People would always say, wow, it's really great how you are. She never was kind of like, unhappy or unpleasant. So she really brought that sense of, wow, I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to bring my personal best to this situation. And sure enough, over the course, she met people through her being in the restaurant business. But the whole point is that she didn't have to feel like this was a job that I'm going to. She could still have her aspirations and her desires and pursue her acting career, but also could have happiness on a moment-to-moment basis by choosing to bring her personal best to the job.
That is the way to be. One story I'll tell you, it's from a guest we had years ago. She was working on Wall Street, making good money. After September 11th, she rethought what she decided to do with her life, and now, I'm assuming she's still in New Smyrna Beach here in Florida, on the East Coast, on the Atlantic side, in case you didn't know. And she sells T-shirts, and she's an artist, and she paints pictures, and some of those pictures are on the shirts and whatever she does, but it's all. She has decided to embrace the talent of art rather than chasing the dollar up on Wall Street. And she told us right up front, she says, I make less than 10% of what I used to make. I'm just throwing out a figure to give you an idea. I don't really know how much she makes, but I remember it was much less.
Yes.
But her happiness was there. I mean, she felt like she was complete now.
Yes.
I also wanted to address one more thing about Robin's question, and that the imagined truth as we see it often keeps you from achieving your your dreams and accomplishing what you want to accomplish in life. And the reason for that is the imagined truth is really nothing more than a persistent nagging voice in your head that keeps telling you that you are bad, or you're not deserving of good things, or that you're not worthy of having the things that you want. So that's what keeps you from achieving your goals. If you can understand and have an awareness of that is what is limiting you in your life, you know that, and we call it, by the way, the imagined truth because it's made up. It's not really true. It's just what we're saying to ourselves based on a circumstance that happened when we were children. So if you can understand that the imagined truth is present, and that's the voice that you're hearing in your head, and say to yourself, well, thanks for sharing, but it isn't true, you can actually take positive steps to overcome that in the moment and have freedom.
Wow. So can I get a personal question answered? What, if you don't mind, what was the imagined truth that you both had to overcome?
I had to overcome, this is Sharon, I had to overcome the imagined truth of I'm not enough. And it came from the fact that I was 32 months old and my parents came home with a baby who happens to be my younger sister, and I said, I must not be enough. I mean, I obviously didn't say it, but my feeling was, I must not be enough. They went out and got another baby.
Wow.
Now,
you were a philosopher when you were a baby.
Right. So that I'm not enough has both supported me in life to be my very best, because I've worked very hard to prove that I am good at what I do and good enough and that I am enough. And it also limits me in moments where it creeps in and is that nagging voice. But I get to say in that moment, it's not true, there it goes again, and take whatever action that I'm hesitant to take because of that imagined truth.
Oh, wow. And if I could just ask a secondary question, that was Sharon, right, talking?
Yes,
Sharon?
Yes.
So do you have a trick to, like when you start to slip back into that, do you have a trick to stay where you need to be rather than going back into that thinking?
Well, it's not a trick, but it is a good question. How can I get back to it? And that is what I rely on is I'm feeling something in my body. So that unease that you feel, that upset that you feel, that discomfort is a trigger for me that something is going on. So I can step back, have an awareness to what is going on, say what's happening here, and in seconds I can get to I'm living my imagined truth all over again. And so because I know that that's what's happening, more often than not, I get to step back and transform that in the moment. Because it is a moment-to-moment experience of freedom. It's not that you know about your imagined truth and it goes away. It doesn't go away. It's always there. That voice is always there. It's just how loud is it turned on?
I think if we all think about our own imagined truths, we all have something different, and identifying that is probably half the battle. I would think.
Well, mine on the other side is I'm bad, and that kind of came out of my own upbringing as well. But it's interesting because we are talking to people who are reading the book, and there's some people who are not able to identify their imagined truth right off the bat. And the fact is that it's okay if you don't recognize it right away, because what happens through the process of just starting to ask yourself, well, what's going on here, and kind of listening for that voice to share with you, oh, my body, like Sharon was describing, what's going on in your body. So you kind of get present, because if you are now looking at what's happening in your body, you're getting nervous, is your stomach upset, is there a headache, you can start to be present. And once you be present, you can say to yourself, okay, what is the loss of freedom here? And we can start to kind of get back to what the imagined truth is from just asking ourselves the question of where am I having a loss of freedom? What's going on here? What does this remind me of? How am I tending to react? What am I doing? Those kinds of things will start to have us be more crystal clear about where we get reactive. Yeah. Are we getting angry for kind of like more overwhelming anger, not just like, every now and again you get a little bit of a frustration.
Right.
But what if you're getting angry because somebody's triggering something? Somebody says something to you and immediately like you fly off the handle. That person says it again, boom. Then there's something that's more persistent that's going on there. Yeah. And that's when you kind of know that the imagined truth may be at work in that particular situation.
Donna, I hope you don't fly off the handle with this, but I've always wanted to meet a bad Jamaican woman. I always thought that would be great.
Well, there you have it.
It may be her imagined truth, but Donna is anything but bad.
Oh, I meant bad the way Michael. I meant the Michael Jackson bad. I meant
the bad Michael Jackson. But I love the way you did that, Larry. My imagined truth, I'm bad. It's awesome.
And both of you ladies have such a positive outlook on life that you can't help but breathing in a sense of fresh air when people read your book, because you just everybody needs some kind of positive reinforcement, and you do that very succinctly.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. We're hoping that the tools within the book, the Freedom Zone, will allow people to actually create that for themselves, that positive sense of joy and freedom.
Well, it's been a joy to talk to you ladies, Sharon and Donna, Sharon Brick, Donna Fullerton. The time flew, so I looked at the clock and realized we were already over. So let me make sure that our listeners can get the book. We'll start with the website. Do you have a website?
Yes, we do. It's freedomzone.com.
Okay, the word "the" is in there?
Yes.
freedomzone.com.
Okay,
yes.
And is the book an ebook? Is it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the others?
It's available on Amazon, so go to Amazon, the Freedom Zone, your gateway to love, liberty, and happiness. And also, I invite everyone to sign up for our blog, because we send out a weekly blog with more ideas and more tips and more tools to have freedom in the moment and to experience that sense of joy and ease.
All right, excellent. Are you on Facebook?
Yeah, we are actually on Twitter.
On Twitter,
so that would be awesome. Yes, at the Freedom Zone, absolutely. And we also are on Google+. So we invite everyone to jump in there and become part of our circle. And our Facebook, we do have one too, is at the Freedom Zone. And you'll see the logo of our book there as well, which is a beautiful kite with the Freedom Zone in the kite in beautiful blue and green. All those freedom colors. Okay,
excellent. I will try to be friends and Twitter partners and everything else, whatever we do nowadays.
We love it. We will too. So much.
Well, that was a fun interview and very, very in depth, and obviously you ladies are doing one thing and something else with your lives. So making lives better for others in many different ways, marketing and insurance, as well as philosophy and psychology. Thank you for being on the air with us. If you're ever in Ocala, by the way, in Central Florida, come in. We've got beautiful studios here at the local mall.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invitation. I may take you up on that.
Anytime.
It was a pleasure.
And
look forward to being friends.
All right.
Friends on Facebook and etc.
Thank you. Donna Fullerton, Sharon Brick, thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you, Robin.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
Hi, this is Joe from Damage Control Services. Join me Tuesdays at 10:30 when we discuss what to do when your property gets damaged, how to fix it fast, and get back on track. At Damage Control, we specialize in helping home and business owners recover from damage caused by floods, fires, storms, tree damage, mold, and all other insurance-related disasters. So when disaster strikes, big or small, call Damage Control Services. Call me, 352-817-6574.
352-507-5352. 352-507-5352. 352-507-5352.
Tom.
352-507-5352.
Tom!
What?
What is that phone number?
Oh, that's our new number for the Voice of Ocala text line, 352-507-5352. If you want to reach Buddy, me, or any of y'all via text. So all you got to do is text 352-507-5352 anytime.
Here are today's headlines from the source, WOCA. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection recently initiated formal enforcement action against Thatcher Chemical of Florida Incorporated following inspections of 2 of its facilities in Florida. The investigations identified numerous violations of state environmental regulations, prompting immediate corrective actions, including cleanup of contaminated soil. The department is requiring additional corrective actions and payment of civil penalties in excess of $230,000. Thatcher Chemical of Florida Incorporated is a chemical production facility operating at locations in DeLand and Palmetto. The DeLand facility was inspected by department staff in August of 2013 following an anonymous complaint that chemicals were being buried on the site. The department responded and identified a significant amount of waste and contaminated soil at the facility. It is estimated between 2010 and 2011, the facility staff buried 100 to 200,000 pounds of ferric sulfate sludge, a byproduct of the facility's production process, in the wooded area behind the plant, according to the report. A legislative bill that would require oil companies to disclose the chemicals used in a controversial drilling process called fracking has hit a partisan brick wall. Representative Ray Rodriguez, a Republican from Estero, does not think House Bill 71 will pass. Fracking, formerly known as hydraulic fracturing, is controversial because it involves injecting a well with water, chemicals, and sand at high pressure to fracture rock and access previously untapped reserves of oil and gas. Fracking is not occurring in the state now, but Rodriguez said his research indicates that fracking is a real possibility in Florida's future. Rodriguez's disclosure bill would put a regulatory process in place so the State Department of Environmental Protection can have a registry of chemicals. Opponents say the problem is a companion bill, House Bill 157, which would allow